And why the council gets its act together, the citizens have to, wait. We have lives too to go on. I thought we were going to do better about communications. This shows it has not gotten any better. You do a disservice to your constituents when you keep them in the dark, as you had. We might want to start now to redo the rules for appointments again. I hope that this voting process is a fully democratic process when it goes through. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Other comments from the public?
Ellen Wright, 9635 Old Coomer Road, Allison Park, PA 15101. The assessment about the operational assessment, as I understand it, it started with Brian O'Malley, and then when Brian O'Malley left, we put that on hold. Is that what I'm understanding?
We had a public works superintendent vacancy. It was started with Mr. O'Malley still as our town manager, and then Mr. O'Malley had moved on to another position, and then the consultant was brought in to also help with the consultancy of the replacement town manager. So during that time, as he took over as our interim town manager, then the public works he assisted with, but the final report was produced after our new manager was hired.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, not a problem.
And then looking at the new business, I think there's some misnumbering of the resolutions.
Yep, that's a typo. I have them addressed here. So
Yeah.
just to address that here in front of everyone, new business A will actually be 2025-03. And we will update this when we mention these as well. And the motion resolution is 2025-03. And again, on item D, that will be 2025-04. So that was an update.
Okay,
Thank you. We caught that as well.
all right.
Sorry, I misnumbered them by one.
And the resolution for the master fee schedule, which will now be 2503, which was formerly labeled as 02. We just did a master fee schedule, and it seemed like we were sort of in a hurry to do that master fee schedule to get the major and the minor grading permits. And it's just not a good luck then to have to go back and change so many fees, because
We're adjusting them
Doesn't
as they
look-
come up.
it
So
doesn't- but that's
I
kind
mean,
of
that's
hard,
the-
like, it's
that's
like,
the purpose of government, that we adjust them as they come. So we adjusted it for the grading change. We're adjusting today, you'll see, because of alcohol in the parks, as well as something that came up in the last couple of weeks was a fee on roof replacements. So I mean, that's the flexibility of being able to adjust it on the fly. Because if we wait for something like that, in instance of the roofing, multiple people will be coming in a different thing that, council doesn't agree with. So,
and it's also, there's a lot of changes in the conditional, on page 4, conditional use, the proposed zoning amount, the subdivision, there's changings in the escrow amount.
that's correct.
And
for
it
all the
sort of seems
escrows.
like that maybe that should have been like something to have taken a look at when the fee schedule was done earlier. So, because it gives the appearance like, well, I don't know, like it's telling somebody, well, you have to wait till we raise or lower our fees, as opposed to having a fee schedule that was looked at comprehensively.
I think,
Can I answer that?
by all means,
Yeah,
please.
especially on the escrow side, since there's no planning director at this time, I get to spend a lot more time in the planning department than I ever thought I would. And I've found that the escrows are established for engineer review fees to be paid by applicants. And the cost of an engineer's review letter has gone up over time. And as I saw those starting to come in, we're having to ask for replenishments far too often. So we need to up the escrow amount in order to make sure that taxpayers don't somehow get stuck with the burden of one applicant who doesn't want to pay their fees on time. I didn't see that until I lived in the department. That's why I wanted to make those changes now.
Okay. And then let's see, B3C. Oh, the appointments with a process. So the process for the personnel appointments when the applications were out, then there was a change in the appointment schedule. So after the people had their applications in, there was a change to the appointment resolution. So where people, which process was used? The process that was in place when they put in their applications, or the process that was changed while their applications were in?
There were only 2 applications that had been received and reviewed prior to the change process. The biggest change was the fact that the committee chairperson was involved in the interview. So we allowed, that was for the personnel board. The chairperson of the personnel board reviewed the prior 2 interviews via the recording on Zoom. And we offered the opportunity to re-interview if they felt that that would have changed the opinion of the interview committee, but it did not. So there were 2 who had applied that were only interviewed by myself and the 2 liaisons rather than also by the chairperson.
Okay, so there was a change. And then we did a bunch of appointments in December, so I was a little why we were appointing people again.
Let me go back. Clarification, because you said that happened during the change. Again, I want to read into the record that when the change was made, the only change that was made was a chair change in the personnel board, and the chair was changed. Personnel committee chair went back and reviewed the recorded interview and was asked specifically if that person should come in for another interview, would it have changed anything on the result? The chair at that point notified the rest of those that were involved in the interview process, it would not. So when you say change was made, yes, change was made, but every opportunity was given to the new chair of the personnel board to review and given the opportunity to re-interview the 2 applicants that were interviewed before. Thank you.
Okay, I was referring to all of the appointments, not just the personnel board. And there
These
were 3,
appointments
and there
that
were,
not
and there-
filled in November. We
And-
still had not enough applicants. We needed to fill those spots.
and there were 3 changes were made: the chair, the town manager, and the recording. Okay, let's see. It's nice to have a red line copy of changes before there's a vote related to the personnel board. I'm a little, it's nice to have it. The personnel board went into executive session to discuss them, and then we're getting the red line comments, so I'm not a little confused about that, but
Unfortunately, your time is up.
oh, excellent. Thank
So
you.
There'll be other opportunities later on.
I will be back.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comments this evening? Okay, continuing on, the previous meeting minutes were submitted to each member of council. You had time to review. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for March 24th? There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
One abstention. Motion carries. Moving on to reports of committees, reports of Public Safety Committee, the chief's report was included in your packet. Chief, if you have any highlights for me.
Good evening, folks.
Good evening.
I would consider March business as usual for the police department. Of note, though, thanks to you folks on council, we were able to promote Michael Cheverenchik to lieutenant back on March 10th. Thank you for that. Also a note here, I'd like to keep you folks posted on the progress of Officer Sean Davis and his new partner Leroy. I saw Officer Davis 3 days ago now. And he says he has 2 more weeks and hopefully then they'll be certified and on the road. Also in March, sticking with the theme of training, we sent 2 officers to technical collision investigations. This just gives them the ability, they'll continue on. There's one more segment that they need to complete where they'll be fully certified to investigate your fatal or very serious near fatal crash investigations. So I think hopefully those don't happen. Very rare here, right? But they do, unfortunately. So it'll be good to have people trained up in that. Social work. Ms. Martin called me out last month. Thank you, Rita. To the end of March, our social worker had 36 individuals referred to her. And I'm happy to report 34 folks out of 36 have either received referrals or services from our social worker. So that program continues to grow and continues to pick up the pace. Also, March 15th, we had several officers participate in multiple jurisdictions in North Hills for the DUI task force. They had a roving DUI patrol, the results of which were 2 DUI arrests, 19 citations, 94 warnings issued for various vehicle code violations, and 2 individuals were also cited for disorderly conduct. That is through the entire North Hills, part of the task force. The North Allegheny baseball team visited us back on March 25th. They tell me that's the 8th year now we've done that with them. We like to engage them, give them an opportunity to have a Q&A with officers. We were able to offer them a taser demonstration that day, let them see some of the police vehicles and equipment, and hopefully maybe some future recruiting for law enforcement, right? And finally, on March 31st, Lieutenant Egley and there's a typo there, and I participated in a safety fair at Hosek Elementary School. Folks have any questions for me?
Any questions for the chief?
I want to thank you for referral for Brian Christian for your social work. Great
Okay,
job.
hopefully that's paying dividends.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, chief. Appreciate it.
Thanks, chief. Thanks, everybody.
Next up on our agenda here is the fire marshal's report. It also was included in your packet. Jeff, any highlights?
Good evening. Yeah, I'll just highlight my report for you and then answer any questions you may have. So for the month of March, there were 17 fire code inspections, 17 fire marshal calls. Fire prevention being a little earlier this year. I did 1 fire prevention program. That was for our homeschool kids program through the library. That's always a good time. We host that here in-house. I did a number of trainings. As far as fire call wise, fire departments were dispatched, and these numbers are for February. Remember, I'm kind of a month behind always on the fire call side. We had 143 calls we were dispatched for all 3 fire companies. 115 of them were in town, with the bulk of them were medical QRS assists, and 28 responses were for out of town calls. Working on a lot of emergency management items, and I don't foresee that slowing down anytime soon, but yeah, we're moving forward. So if anybody has any questions, try to answer them.
No questions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is building permit report. That report was in your packet. If there's any questions, they can be directed towards our town manager. Seeing none, we will move on to liaison reports. The personnel board, Mr. Wall.
The report is in your packet. Should you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay. Public or volunteer firefighter steering committee. I don't know if there was a meeting.
There was a meeting,
There was?
yeah, on the
Okay.
25th, because we've moved up the frequency of the meeting.
Okay.
And I think there was not didn't see it in the packet, so. I don't know
Okay.
if it was in there. Mostly discussed was standardization, training. There's a new emergency trailer. And some fire hydrants that aren't on the list.
Thank you for that update. Can we see those minutes, I guess, when they become
So
available?
since we moved the frequency up, Fire Marshal and I discussed if we need to take minutes at the every other meeting or just the quarterlies as we did in the past.
Okay.
It's at the will of council if you want to see minutes from each one of those meetings, but some of the meetings are more discussions. I'm really trying to focus the group on, collaborating together on how to move forward, not necessarily, the standard business we had.
Understood. As long as, Don, are you fine with still just giving an oral kind of update from
That's
this?
fine.
That works for me. Good for council?
Yep.
Sounds good. Thank you. Public comment on public safety. If there's any public comment, please come forward, name and address. Relevant to public safety. Sure.
Ellen Wright, 9635 Old Coomer Road, Allison Park, PA 15101. Looking at the red line copy, we just changed the personnel board and, to have things done all at one time and then to go back. And then the interview committee includes somebody with police management experience. Is that in the new red line copy? And I was just curious how we clarified, please, I myself would not qualify. But I just wondered what that means, police management experience, along with police chiefs. And I see we're switching from emphasis on the oral from the written. And I can see reasons for that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Seeing no other public comment, moving on to reports of facilities management. Staff report, public works activity. As always, Brad has included beautiful slideshows and plenty of information for us. Do you have any highlights you want to go over with that, Brad?
Just our sidewalk out there, that'll be done this week out by the pickleball courts. Our 25 paving list for basin work it should be wrapping up here soon, and we'll be moving into our 26. And ponds, that's about it for now.
Appreciate all you and your staff does. I mean, I think Mr. Daly's report gave a very good overlook of all the departments that you have over there and everything they encompass. So appreciate all the hard work you do for us in the town. Please carry that on to all of your crew as well. Any other questions for Brad?
I have a question, if I may. In terms of like communicating with what's happening on state roads, and I know we've talked about this before because I'm still getting calls from my neighbors about signs on the street that have been there since September, with no apparent work being done out on the street on the state road that connects to my street. I don't know if there's a way to communicate with them more, or.
So I just talked to Arvin Bencat's office on Friday about the signs on Lake Marshall.
Mhm.
The state told them that they are still continuing work there, and it should be through mid-June that those signs will be there.
Because I haven't seen them doing
That's
any.
class 3 signs we can't touch. them, so.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing that I had for you, Brad, is that I wanted to thank you and your crew for the neighborhood cleanup, the roadside cleanup this weekend. They're very professional, very attentive to the almost 125 volunteers who showed up for the roadside cleanup, and it was chilly and it was damp. But I wanted to thank you specifically before I thank everybody. I guess I'll thank everybody now for their participation in the roadside cleanup.
Thank you.
Well done.
When you talk to Mr. Venkat's office, can you please mention that plate on Peoples? Or
I
did
could
they
do
get
that.
Thank you.
That plate on Peoples has been talked about by a lot of people.
That was permanent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Moving on to liaison reports, the Environmental Advisory Committee.
We just had our lovely annual roadside cleanup this past Saturday, and just want to thank everyone for all the amazing work. And I have a note from the Environmental Advisory Committee Chair, Jeff Petro, that I would like to read and share with us all.
Please.
So, on Saturday, April 12th, the Environmental Advisory Committee conducted their spring roadside cleanup with approximately 100 participants. This included all council members, all EAC members, township staff, PA Rep Venkat, and US Rep Deluzio. In addition, Scout Pack 279 will conduct the cleanup of Potter Park on April 27th, bringing the total participants to approximately 130. Participants were aided. Thank you. Yes. Participants were aided by 5 police details and DPW staff. The EAC is pleased to announce that the day was a complete success as there were no safety issues and approximately 210 bags of litter were collected. The EAC is grateful for the cooperation and support of McCandless Police, the Department of Public Works staff, Abby Lukostic, and McCandless Town Council. The EAC would also like to thank Councilman Wall for supplying a continental breakfast. We feel this event enhances the community through beautification and the strengthening of our community spirit. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and we expect the event to grow only larger next year. That was from Jeff, and I do want to give Jeff another special shout out for being the mastermind. who had a Thank you to all our wonderful residents in this town who came out on a cold morning to make our town a better place to live. We're very lucky to live here.
And I just want to build off of that because when that started in environmental committee years ago, there was not a lot of buy-in from council. Council wasn't willing to make it a main event. They weren't, it wasn't there yet. So the fact of to see where it came with, 25 people in the first year and no grabbers and no maps and everything else, to see where you guys have, hats off to this council for buying in, hats off to the 200 some bags that they've picked up.
Absolutely.
Just
It just
phenomenal.
grows and grows.
The greatest thing about it though, was it wasn't just an activity to pick up our trash around our roadways.
Turning into a community event.
It's a community
Yeah.
event now.
Absolutely.
And
Very
it's
much
got
so.
people together.
Carry that back because that's a big thing.
Absolutely.
They've done a well done job. Thank you. Continuing, any other questions for Mr. G or Jenny? Okay. Ad hoc tech committee, Mr. Wall, I don't think there was a meeting. Stormwater ad hoc, there was no meeting. So at this time, is there any public comment on facilities management?
Ellen Wright, 9635 Old Timber Road. I just wanted to publicly say that I appreciate the work that the Public Works Department does. It's the salt. My roads are always clear, so I'm appreciative of that and the other work that Public Works does. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Any other public comment on facilities management? Okay, seeing none. Reports of Services Committee, liaison reports, McAllen Township Sanitary Authority. Mr. Casey.
Reports in your packet. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to discuss.
Any questions for Mr. Casey? Continuing on, right back at you, McAllen Franklin Park Ambulance Authority. Mr. Casey.
Likewise, the reports in your packet. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Casey? Okay, next is Northland Public Library Authority. Mr. G or Jenny.
They're full steam ahead on their renovations, and I urge us all to please attend the April 26th Garden Gala. It is a great community event that raises money for a phenomenal cause.
There's still tickets available.
I have a question for Mr. Giorgetti.
Yes.
I read in the report that the library is, I guess there were unexpected expenses with the construction.
There was, yes.
Do you know what they are?
There was an issue with the pump for the sprinkler system. I
Okay.
recall, we put them in contact with vendors to try and figure it out. And then the treads of the stairs on the outside, there was an issue with the contractors messed up the rise overrun on them. So they were very steep. So they're looking at what they can do there to remedy that.
Is it my understanding though that they had to put off buying furniture to deal with these expenditures?
That I am not sure of.
I thought I read that.
I read that in the report, but I don't know if that's a finalized thing. I think from my understanding is they're still working with their design and engineering team about these problems. So I think, just keep us appraised of what's going
Yeah.
on.
I can keep us.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Giorgetti? Seeing none, public comment on services. Seeing no public comment, moving on to old business, action concerning proposed ordinance number 1556. So this was included in your packets. This is in relation to alcoholic beverages in public parks, with the exception of issuing a permit. So this was kind of brought in under our last manager. It was discussed, kind of fell to the back table. It's been brought back around. Mr. Schwinn has formalized it through all of his research and whatnot. We needed a formal process for alcohol in the parks. This basically says it is not legal to have it in the parks unless permitted with a permit through the town, which is also why we're amending the permit fee schedule.
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 1556, an ordinance of the town of McAllen, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, Adding Article 732 Parks and Recreation Areas to the Town of McCandless Code of Ordinances to prohibit the possession and consumption of alcoholic beverages in public parks except pursuant to a permit issued by the town and in compliance with the requirements of the permit.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll drink to that.
A second by Mr. Casey. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, under new business, remember we have some resolution changes here on the numbers. So the first one here will be resolution 2025-03. And this is the resolution to change the fees and charges on the town as was discussed earlier. Changes for the alcohol permit as well as the what was the other part we changed there? The escrows, thank you. Yes, the escrows as well as the roof. The fee for the roof. So those were the three changes in there. Is there a motion?
Motion to adopt resolution 2025-03, a resolution of the town of McCandless, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, establishing a master resolution to govern various town fees and charges.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up is action concerning appointments to authorities and boards. It was asked before this process. These interviews were held. The committees that reviewed them then made a recommendation. Those were formalized into a memo that was sent to council. And typically the council or those liaisons make that motion. So if that's there, the first one is for a zoning hearing board alternate for a term expiring December 31st, 2027.
I'll make that motion.
Please.
Make a motion to appoint Travis Cully to the zoning hearing board as an alternate for a term expiring December 31, 2027.
So there is a motion to appoint Travis Colley. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the MIDA Authority for a term expiring December 31st, 2026.
I'll make a motion to appoint Bill Kirk to McCandless Industrial Development Authority for a term expiring December 31st, 2026.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is for a personnel board for a term expiring December 31st, 2025.
Make a motion to appoint Eric Fisher to the Personnel Board for a term expiring December 31st, 2025.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next item up is a discussion regarding amendments to the Personnel Board rules. So this is kind of like a first look. It's been included in your packet. There's lots of red lines in it. This has been approved by Personnel Board unanimously. So it has come to us. We have time to look at it. I just wanted John, I shouldn't say I. John wanted to make sure it's included in your packet so that everyone got a chance to look at it. And then this will come back up for a vote.
So this, if I can do a little.
By all
explaining
means,
here,
please. Thank you.
I'd like to hear. These will be tied together. There are rules and regulations that Personnel Board has for how they operate. And not to be confused, this is not how folks are appointed to the Personnel Board. This is how applicants for the police department are interviewed. So when we talk about the primary changes, I've indicated them in a memo to you, and I'll go into as much detail as you'd like me to, but the first change that needed made in this batch of rules and regulations was to be consistent with how members of the Personnel Board are appointed. So we made it reflect the language of what the most current policy for town council is, rather than the language in here was not consistent with that new policy we just adopted about who was part of the interview committee, how they were interviewed and notified, et cetera. At the recommendation of the Personnel Board, this originally was a board of 3, and now it's a board of 5 with 2 alternates, and the board recommended removing the 2 alternate positions. Since there's already 5 board members and they can operate with a quorum of at least 3, based on the business that was going to be brought before them, they did not feel that alternate positions were needed any longer. As I mentioned, language needed to be consistent with the application and the interview process that's outlined in the ordinance. So certain aspects of this personnel board rules and regulations are also tied to the ordinance that we had made changes to earlier in the year. That ordinance will need to have an amendment made to it to reflect the changes that you see in this red line document. So, the next time that we look, there'd actually be 2 things to vote on: the personnel board rules and regulations, and then an ordinance that codifies those rules and regulations. The old language indicated the top 12 candidates would be eligible for an oral interview and anybody who could have veterans preference points. We changed that to be just the top 12 candidates would be eligible for an oral interview, and the veterans preference points would be added after the successful completion of the oral interview. Test weighting, as was brought up, we felt that the weighting should be changed instead of 60% written and 40% oral, to flop that. The written test has a lower weighting due to the fact that some folks who may be a good test taker, who may have taken tests at a number of different municipalities, become very good at that test, and the higher weighting on the oral score allows that panel of chiefs who's going to do the interview to really, put some emphasis into how well we think that officer would fit into McCandless and how well they would handle situational tasks that maybe aren't outlined in a written test. Simplified the calculation standards for oral interviews from the process that was in there before. Change, and that's basically out of a 100-point scale instead of the sliding grading scale that had been authorized in the past. Duration of the list to be 6 months with the option for a 6-month extension. Currently, we're tied to a 2-year-long list. So when we make a list of candidates, we're basically encumbered with that list for a period of 2 years, with the rate that students graduate from the police academy, with the number of folks who get hired in other municipalities. That duration was just too long. This gives the opportunity for a list to be kept fresh every 6 months or a year. And then with regard to promotional exams, we had a minimum score of 70% required before. We felt that that score should be bumped up and settled on the amount of a 75% minimum score for promotion. Felt that that should be a standard that anybody who wanted to be a sergeant or lieutenant here should be able to achieve. Personnel board did review these. They unanimously voted to approve all the changes you see in red line in the packet. As I mentioned, in order to make this official, we would have to pass the rules and regulations as well as advertise the ordinance. Based on the advertising schedule, I'd like to correct that date from the April 28th council meeting to be the first council meeting in May. That way it would align with the Public Safety Committee council meeting for the month.
I have several questions. And it's for public edification and not for mine. The panel of chiefs, did you go into that a little bit?
Sure, this is a common practice followed by many other municipalities in the area. In order to examine these candidates, it's nice to have a panel of thoughtful residents, but it's even better to have a panel of police professionals. The way that most places do it, and Chief Hawk can attest to this because he's participated as a chief on a panel for neighboring municipalities and for other municipalities in the area. You bring in a panel of 3 who will ask a total of 10 questions. They'll each score the people on a 10-point scale. The thought behind bringing those folks in is, they know how to do the job the best. They're the ones who can evaluate whether an answer is accurate, rather than maybe somebody who doesn't have that level of experience. The panel does not always have to be the same. It may have to change because you do not want to have a chief on that panel who has any relationship to an applicant. So if you find an applicant, let's say who was a part-timer in Franklin Park, you would not choose the Franklin Park chief to be on that panel that time. It gives the chief flexibility to be able to pick either retired or acting chiefs, or ranking officers, lieutenants and sergeants would be able to be considered as well to perform.
Now, I know the answer to this next question, but again, for public edification, I want to make sure everybody's clear. There's a 6-month window on each of the lists, and then we can extend it another 6 months. Now answer this for me, please. That gives us flexibility because there are a lot of police departments out there that are hiring and coaching other police departments, such as McCandless. This gives us flexibility so we can react quicker as a personnel board and as a town. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The other best part about it is it allows new applicants who maybe have graduated the academy, who maybe now would meet our minimum requirements of either years of service or hours of service in another police department to be able to apply. So there may be a candidate, let's say, who only had 1,000 hours of experience at the time of interview. He may have the 2,000 by the time that 6-month period, and he could apply, or she, and we'd have a great new applicant pool.
Thank you very much for the clarification.
Any other, oh, I'm sorry, you're still.
I really want to thank the personnel board. They've gone through, Rita, you've done a great job, and the rest of the personnel board have gone through great pains to go through this and give their approval.
I want to say I appreciated all the thoughtful additions you had to the recommendations that we had placed. Absolutely.
As a member of the personnel board, by all means.
This is not Rita Martin, 10585 Grubbs Road. This is not about the personnel board per se, nor the changes we made, but about the selection process. One of the suggestions I made, and this helps everybody. When somebody applies for a board or committee, it would be nice to see a list of the names of the people who applied, only because then we can, look at that and know, yes, you received the application, look at the people, and it also encourages others to maybe apply, because we never know. You see the posting and you think, oh, maybe I should apply, or maybe, I just think it would be nice to have that. I don't know if that's in, I don't think you put that in, that a list of names of those who apply for any position, whether it be personnel or other. Just a suggestion.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, and that's part of the new policy that we had adopted. The memo should have been in the public packet. I hope that it was, that listed who all the candidates were for the positions this time. So yeah, everybody was in there, and we'll make sure we do that again in the future. That way the public knows who council has chosen out of which applicants.
Okay, so we will see this back around. It sounds like it's a two-part kind of thing. We may see one in April. We may see the
You'll see both actions together, and
Okay.
it should be at the first council meeting.
beginning of May. Perfect.
Rules will be voted on first and then the ordinance.
Then the ordinance. Okay. Any other questions for John? Okay. Next item up is action concerning resolution 2025-04. And this is purchase and sales agreement for property located at 1201 Van Drive, Pittsburgh, PA 15237. So,
Can I note for
Please, by
the
all
record
means.
that the resolution also includes parcel 1070 and 117, which is a very small piece adjacent to the existing parcel. And that is part of the proposed transaction.
So all these fancy words and numbers is the end of the day is the town has entered into or is willing to enter into an agreement for a purchase of property adjacent to Potter Park. This will add 17 acres to existing Potter Park, expanding that park in that way. And if anybody else, John, Mr. Schoen, you want to expand any more on that for us?
This was an opportunity that we've been discussing since I came on board. We were lucky enough to have a resident who's a property owner who was excited, I feel like, to be able to help expand our green space in the town of McCandless and have the potential for this space to be used in the future as what the town wants to see. It's a great time to be able to add this into our real estate portfolio, I'll say, as we're in the middle of a Parks Master Plan. And this is really going to give that committee an opportunity to think and talk about the availability of what we want to see in this space. And it's adjacent to Potter Park, which I know is fond to at least a few council members and lots of residents. And it really is going to provide us with a lot of new opportunities. And I know that Janet is here tonight. And if she has anything that she'd like to say and add to this and maybe discuss, I'd love for her to come forward and talk about it.
Janet Mayer, 1201 Van Drive. I'm pleased to see the property go to the park. However, what you just stated is not the agreement that was sent to me to sign. It included only the 14-acre property. So that sales agreement will need to be modified. It did not include the 3 acres. So that's something that needs to be looked at.
Sure, I'll talk to George tomorrow.
George is still out of town.
Okay.
Try him the end of the week, but we'll need to come up with a new sales agreement other than what was presented and signed. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to give her. In light of everything in our final, why don't we table this till next meeting? We'll get everything cleaned up on sales agreements and everything. And I think at that time, then we might have some formalization. We can show some mapping and et cetera of that. So a motion to table this action.
So moved.
Motion second, all in favor of tabling, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. At this time, any public non-agenda comments, please come forward, state your name and address.
I don't want to make this meeting any longer, but I have Rita Martin, 10585 Grubbs Road. I have a question for John, our town manager, since you've gotten into planning a little bit. I know the changes have been made to our zoning laws a little bit with the new 10-year plan that RJ worked on. But do we still have sidewalks as a requirement by builders? Okay. And one of the things that was in that plan was connectivity. And when I come down Ingamore Road and see those townhouses up there, all I can think of is isolation. They have nowhere to go. They have no sidewalks. They can get nowhere. They don't even belong to our community in essence. It was poorly thought out. And I think we need to do better for the people that move in there and for our community. They are very shoddy looking. Okay, not going any further with that. Next thing is a suggestion. We have that Parks and Recreation thing coming out and I filled it out. But one thing that was missing on there was, and I know it was in the 10-year plan, 10-year, is a recreation center. My friends in Shaler tell me they're working on one. They will have one, Ross will have one, Franklin Park has one, Marshall has one, Pine has one, Hampton has one. Who's missing in that? You know who's missing. So think about that. It's a suggestion that we should take seriously. We need a place like that for the people of McCandless. They deserve it.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public non-agenda comments?
I have 2 or 3, Ellen Ray, 9635 Old Coomer Road, Allison Park, PA 15101. I'm just speaking of planning director. I'm just curious how the process is going with hiring a new planning director and a new finance director.
I believe it's still ongoing.
Okay. And then I wasn't aware of this organization until the last month, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. And it turns out it's located here in Allegheny County, to part of Allegheny County I don't go to, the South Hills. But it's their history is from coal miners and coal dust. And they're the place where the masks for the United States are certified. They also certify internationally masks. And I've tried to go back and read. I don't know if it's the first responders or the firemen, but somebody gets their mask certified by NIOSH, and they were fired a couple weeks ago. And that perhaps a letter to someone that it would be nice to have the international experts certifying masks that are used by first responders or firemen. I'm not sure which the category is, but it would be nice if they were back into business so that we know that our volunteers and professionals are being protected. So.
Thank you for that
That's it.
comment. Appreciate it. Any other public comment?
Paul Heckman, 10529 Abbey Lane. It was great to hear that that dangerous stretch close to the pickleball court finally has a sidewalk. However, as somebody who constantly sees people, and I know we're working on it, Jack, I know we're working on it, but North Meadows still becomes a hazard. People are walking in the street with with the sun behind them, and people are driving up that hill every day. I think and I know Jack and I had a conversation Saturday about there's some problems on the one side. The south side is the side that if you did a traffic study, 90% of the people that go from down below up above do it on the south side of the street. And I think anything we can do to keep that project going, it's one of those things that is an accident waiting to happen. The young woman that walks her baby in the stroller in the street, every time I see it, I shudder because I know there's just a probability that something bad, it's like the woman with the dog over on Harmony. Sooner or later, something bad is going to happen there. It's a given because the rise of that hill and the sun rising in the morning until the sun gets out of the way, it's just a dangerous situation. So
Correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that in front of our town engineer?
No, it's moving forward.
Yeah.
It's just one little segment someone's given us a hard time, so we'll just build it and not build that.
Yeah,
segment.
at a minimum, I think one side will definitely get done, no matter what,
and
which is what you alluded to.
I
So, yeah.
think, I think it'd be great to have it on both sides, but I gotta tell you, to hold the whole project up as opposed to fixing where the majority of people are. And it's the people that are coming up the hill in the morning when they're out in the street. Very few people, because you'd have to be half insane to be on the other side of the road where people are coming off the road and going around that bend this way and can't see who's there and who's here at the moment. That's just dangerous. So whatever we can do, it's appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other non-agenda comments?
Exactly.
Seeing none, we will enter into executive session for a legal matter. Can I have a motion
Make
to
a
adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Motion, is there a second? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.